The moral of the story is very simple. Coverage is king. The word coverage effectively means how well do you cover your market. So for a salesperson, this means how often, with what frequency and with what diligence are you meeting your customers. Yeah? So here's the story. I was in Finland and I was working for a company, an IT company, and a big Finnish, Scandinavian, Swedish, Norwegian, can't really remember it, a big IT powerhouse, yeah, very big in the region. And they had a sales manager and sales director who was also, and his name was, or his nickname was Bulldozer, right? Bulldozer. So I'm sure you can imagine the warm-hearted person he was, yeah? He was a lovely, soft, warm-hearted person whose nickname was Bulldozer, yeah? So, yeah, he was a tough cookie. And so he was put into the position of sales director for the organization, and if you can see this, you probably can't, but zoom in. What you can see here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people. This is an A4 printed sheet which prints 1 week from, well, you can't see it anyway, so the machine has just died. So carry on film. It printed 1 week from the timetable from Outlook. Yeah? So what he did, he went into Outlook and he printed 1 miscellaneous week from somewhere in the timetable. Yeah? And then he got a red pen and he highlighted all of the customer meetings that his sales managers, who were on quota, like a normal sales rep, he highlighted all of the sales meetings that they had been through, yeah, during that week. And he also, to show them that he was walking the talk, he did it for himself. And he highlighted his own customer meetings. So from 13 direct reports, he had 2 or 3 people whose time plans were covered in red lines. There were 2 people who did not come to the office that week. The Human Resources Department hated these guys because they never came to the office. They were never there. Yeah? They were always calling them, saying, come and do some team building. No. And they were never in the office, and they were constantly at the customer. Yeah? There were a few people who had like 50% of their timetables or 70% of their timetables covered in red lines. There were a couple of people who had almost no red highlights within their timetable. There was one person who had no customer meetings during that week. There were 3 people who had a lot of quasi-customer meetings during the week, like 1 or 2 or 3 customer meetings. After this, he went into their CRM system and looked at the results. And surprise, surprise, there was a direct correlation between the people who were performing, the people who were overperforming, and the people who were underperforming. The people who were underperforming did not have any meetings during that week. The people who were performing okay had something like between 40 and 50% of their time was spent in customer meetings. 40 to 50% of the time, yeah? That's, you know, that's a lot, yeah? There were some people who were overperforming by 20, 30, 40, 50%. The highest performer was outstanding, overperforming by 150%. And his timetable was blocked for that week. When they looked into it afterwards, his time plan was blocked for 6 weeks with customer meetings. Yeah? He even had customer meetings 1.5 years in advance. You know, trade fairs blocked here and there. They were speaking to him and saying, how do you do this? And he says, well, it's, you know, you go for a meeting and you arrange another meeting while you're there. You get involved in a project and you arrange another meeting while you're there. You meet a person and you say, oh, I've wanted to meet you for a long time, can I have a meeting with you? And you create this whole machine of meetings, and one meeting leads to another. Your timetable becomes an instrument for dividing your time between all of these different people who are your customers. And they say, well, what do you speak about? He says, whatever I have to speak about. Football? Yes, of course I speak about football, because I love it. But generally speaking, customers don't speak about football unless they have a lot of free time on their hands. Normally I have a topic to speak about. Ongoing projects, potential new projects, competition projects, problems with the contracts. I have a lot of existing topics and I have a lot of new topics that I want to speak about. Of course, every meeting has a purpose. Yeah? And then they were going to some of the underperformers and saying, so what about you guys? And they were saying, well, you know, the customers don't want to speak to me. I've got lots of work to do here. I've got too much work to do internally, too much work to do to go and speak to the customers. Yeah, that was the main reason for not getting out in front of the customers. So this was a very interesting, it was actually illegal, this test that he did. Yeah, the HR people, you know, we were saying, don't show this to HR because they won't like it. I'm not sure it was illegal, but it was certainly a very aggressive way of demonstrating what he wanted from his team. But after that, there was a very clear movement to get people out of the office and in front of the customers. Yeah? So the way that that works in your environments is always different. Yeah? It's always impossible to spend 24/7 at your customer site. But for some people, it's not impossible. It's the way that they do stuff. Yeah? And the salesperson is a vocation. Selling is a vocation. Selling is something that you do as one of your long-term objectives for life. Whatever your role or position, you're always in a sales function, which means you always need a lot of meetings to arrange and go to. Even if you end up being the general manager of an organization, what's interesting about the top person in the organization is that within the pipeline, they have the lowest job. The CEO, his job in the pipeline is acquisition campaigning, cold calling. That's their only value. Oh, okay, sometimes they have value in other areas of the sales machine as well. They can come and negotiate final terms and agreements, yeah? But the best usage of the most important guy is cold calling, yeah? Getting on the phone to other important people and saying, hey, you play golf, and I play golf, let's play golf together. And then I'll send my slaves to meet your slaves and we'll create babies. How about it? Yeah? Very interesting perspective on the most important person in the organization. And that's what they should be doing too.